pleasure to be here today. So very insightful presentation around dystopias and utopias. I think our sort of current state research around the digital home is going to shed even more light onto what consumers are really saying and feeling about the onslaught of technology. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? So we conduct a survey annually each year, 2,500 UK broadband households, really looking at the attitudes to various types of services, content, connectivity, and also the smart home. And that's the area I'm going to drill down into today. So we have 54 attitudinal questions. We segment all the responses. So we've got 8 household personas and some really interesting and actually quite ambivalent findings around the state of the home today. So what are our headline survey findings? Well, actually, there's some good news. Let's start with the good news. You know, tech demand is actually pretty strong. You hear a lot of headlines around weakening consumer sentiment, you know, the death of the high street. Actually, we're seeing an uptick in the proportion of people who are interested in new technology and gadgets and tend to get them before everybody else. So that's good news. Also, interestingly, rising demand for premium. More people than before say they pay a premium to stream catch-up TV without ads. More people prepared to pay a premium for high-end devices. Good news if you're the maker of a folding smartphone retailing for £2,000. So, you know, certainly some good news there. And also households are quite open to actually quite radically new forms of value proposition. We've just heard about 5G and the scope for personalization. Yes, there's a cross-industry opportunity. If you're a telecoms operator, you really want to monetize your new network investment. You want to charge more for that mobile connection. We actually found that some households would be willing to drop their fixed broadband connection if their household's needs could be met through a mobile broadband connection. So potentially some room for disruptive packages there. And actually that sentiment most pronounced among younger generations. So could we see a bit of fixed to mobile substitution? It's been talked about for a few years. Could 5G unlock the door there? But, you know, that's the good news. What are the challenges? What are the elements of dystopia that we're seeing right now in UK households? Actually, there's quite a lot of complexity. There's actually arguably too much choice. A substantial proportion of households actually find it difficult to track the availability of their favourite content across a plethora of services, platforms and apps. And actually that's also mimicked in the broadband market. 46% of households believe there are frankly too many combinations of content and connectivity. So this world of bundling actually causes confusion, seen as a route towards convenience, actually perhaps too much choice for some people. And if we look at weekly time spent browsing online, the proportion of households spending more than 30 hours a week online, that's actually dipping year on year. And we're seeing growing signs of demand for digital detox. Half of households actually actively seeking time away from their smartphones and other internet-connected devices. So certainly some food for thought there. Levels of trust are particularly low. Now, we've seen a lot of regulation around GDPR come in. Certainly it's a hot policy topic right now, consumer protection across TMT. But actually 72% of households, and this is after GDPR came in, said they're very cautious about disclosing personal details and financial information on the internet, even if the website is from a brand that I know or trust. So pretty emphatic there. And actually 40% of households have given up hope. They say it's impossible to keep your personal data secure when using the internet or internet-enabled devices. So what does this mean for the smart home? I think, you know, looking at our overall survey findings, you can see there's a real ambivalence there. Yes, people want new technology. They're even prepared to pay more. But actually half of households, they've got serious question marks around data disclosure, around the amount of screen time that they have. So when we look at smart home, we had a bunch of questions in our survey really drilling into this, you know, exciting area. Here we've got adoption levels now in grey across a range of use cases and also in 5 years' time. Right now, digital assistants are best established, and actually take-up of them has doubled over the last 12 months from 11 to 22% of households. Smart speakers, a kind of adjacent product category, also faring well. If we look at the sort of 5-year profile, actually what's surprising to me at any rate is smart utility services actually have the strongest growth profile. So if we look 5 years out, households see themselves using smart heating, smart lighting, smart security, and they're actually overtaking some of the more media and entertainment use cases that are actually more prevalent now. So areas like VR headsets, perhaps people are concerned about retina detection. But certainly we're seeing a bit of a sort of a revamping of the order there, potentially over the next 5 years. But fundamentally, good news. Adoption is climbing over the next 5 years. What's driving this? Still smart home products are pretty expensive. If you go into a retail store and look at the kind of range of products on offer, 3-figure sums plus if you want to buy into an ecosystem. But actually sort of resistance to these high prices, we're seeing that fade a little bit year on year. So 23% now think that smart home prices are reasonable. That's up from 19% last year. And actually this receptivity to lower price points more pronounced among younger generations, which is good news if you're trying to make waves in the smart home. But what are the pain points? What are the sort of caveats on this positive prognosis? Well, actually awareness, which is really key to take up quite clearly, that's actually static. So 49% of households are aware of the features and benefits of smart home. That's the same as last year. We've seen price points come down. We're seeing digital assistants take-up's really growing there, but actually overall awareness of what the smart home can do for you as a customer, that's flatlining at the minute. And actually, we're seeing again perhaps some concerns around the complexity of the offer. We have the agreement statement. It makes sense to have all smart home devices controlled by a central system. This idea of being able to act as a one-stop shop, being able to upsell, being able to cross-sell. 4 in 10 households are buying into that. 4 in 10 undecided, 1 in 5, no thank you. So clearly there's a range of opinions in terms of being one, all things to all people in the smart home. And what's sort of the biggest news, I think, coming out of the survey findings this year were really around security concerns and how they can derail the smart home growth story. We've already seen in the wider context of the digital home, people are very concerned around their personal data. But if we drill into that through the lens of the smart home, 71% would be concerned about the ability of hackers to access internet-connected appliances. And let's not forget that most people, when they come across the smart home, the discovery phase of their experience, if you like, they're reading a negative headline potentially in the newspaper. That conditions how they respond to this opportunity. 68% are concerned as to what personal data is captured and shared by smart home devices. They're unsure of what the permissions are around that, who's storing what, how it's repurposed, how it's being shared between different devices. And even new regulation can't necessarily sort that out in one fell swoop. And even before using these services or indeed buying them, just again during the discovery, the evaluation phase of the customer journey, 57% would assess security features when purchasing smart home devices. It's critical to that purchasing journey. And furthermore, 53% believe it will not be possible for companies to make smart home devices fully secure. Now, if you think about online personal data, 40% of people had given up the ghost there. When it comes to smart home, 53% think that it can never be fully secure. So it's more elevated within these types of use cases. So some good news, but perhaps some health warnings there for you around smart home and the take-up profile. Which segment's leading the adoption curve? I think running through some of this survey data, there's this ambivalence. There's positives, there's negatives. There's dystopia and utopia, if you like. We have these 8 personas, these household groups, and they shed a little bit more color on this kind of nuanced state of the digital home. So we've got 8 different segments here. As you can see, premium and proud, they're fans of the smart home. These customers tend to be older households, more affluent. They take triple play, quad play service bundles. They're very receptive to the smart home, and they're interested in paying for the smart home. Digital devotees, a much younger group, the most streaming-centric in our sample, the most smartphone-centric in our sample. Again, they're fans of smart home and see themselves adopting these services. And finally, and interestingly, beyond the bundle. Now, this group, very tech-aware, very savvy, very well-informed, but don't want the one-stop shop. They want to purchase best of breed. They want that flexibility. They don't want to be locked into a particular service provider or a particular bundle, and they are keen on the smart home. And then other groups, content comes first. You know, these are customers of more basic broadband and pay TV packages. Again, they're kind of middle of the road in terms of appetite for the smart home. And likewise for spend-aware switchers, pretty savvy, very well informed on price, but perhaps price points still a little bit too high for them to dip their toes into the smart home waters. And then you've got three more challenging groups. You've got loyal but lightweight. Very loyal customers will stay with their broadband providers forever, but not receptive to taking additional products from their existing suppliers. And frankly, a little bit cost constrained in terms of experimenting with some of these new services. And then the two real problem children, if you like, drowning in digital. These customers really struggle with their service providers, a poor track record of interaction in terms of customer support. Fundamentally, they struggle in the world of digital. They need support, they're asking for it, they're not getting it. They're not very interested in smart home right now. And finally, a pretty interesting category, disengaged users. These customers, quite tech savvy, quite tech aware, but again have had some troubling experiences in the past with their service providers, quite apathetic, quite disengaged from the world of new service propositions, and again, not very interested in the smart home right now. So what does this mean for service providers to the smart home? Probably three overarching takeaways, if you like. Number one, if you're providing a smart home experience, you need to strengthen awareness and affinity with the smart home. So adoption levels are encouraging right now. 10%, 15%, rising to 35 to 40% over time. But still, awareness is only half of households. So are you constraining the addressable market in the long term? Because 50% don't see the value add right now of smart home. Convincing the long tail is key. Ensuring that trust lies at the heart of the customer journey, absolutely critical. All across the different use cases in our survey, privacy, security, trust, right front and center of the consumer mindset. And finally, revitalizing your role in an evolving supplier landscape. Some people want best of breed, others may be interested in a one-stop shop, but there is a whole panoply of different offers out there. There could be products that work well together. The scope for partnerships, that's still widening, arguably everything to play for. This is still a nascent market. So working out where you fit in this quite fluid value chain, also very important. So I hope you found that illuminating. That's a quick run through of our findings. If you have any more questions, happy to take them afterwards, and thank you very much.